Hello everyone and welcome back to the sculpting part of this project. Here you can see an object from the sculpting exercises and what I made out of it. 2 hours of sculpt later. Okay, I wanted to add more details and you can see as usual that if you put the time and work with a really tight workflow and method, you can achieve something great, as every one of you can do. Okay, so we are talking about creating a character with sculpts, and remember that little guy from a while back. We are gonna use this scene to create our first character with sculpt. So I'm starting with a new scene, as usual, okay? And what I'm gonna do first is, of course, to add an object, and I'm gonna use a UV sphere. Why I'm using that, I already told you before, but just in case, look, if I add a cube or even a cylinder, they look like they could be used for some sculpting, but remember that they don't have any definition inside, okay? We would need to add loop cuts or these kind of things, because if I switch now to sculpt mode, you can see it almost doesn't work inside the shape, okay? Whereas if we are using a sphere, it already has a bit of definition. We don't need something more complicated than that, of course, because we want to start as simple as possible, but you can see that I can still sculpt it in a lot of different ways. So let's add a UV sphere. I'm gonna smooth it out so that it looks a bit better, and then let's switch to sculpt mode. Here we can turn on the mirror in the x-axis, okay, because this shape is central and it's usually the same on the left and the right side. And now I'm just gonna start sculpting a head shape, okay? Sometimes you would see people using just this sphere to sculpt the entire head, and you could do that too, but here the process is, as we did at the beginning of this project, to go with the simple shapes, and if you add another one, that will allow you to be able to customize a bit better your head. This is just the head, okay? And if you know a bit your anatomy, I'm not gonna teach you about anatomy. Half of the reason being because I'm not the best at anatomy, and the other reason is that it would be too long to teach, okay? But you all know that we've got a jaw and then a cranium, okay? So those two parts will act as almost those two elements of our head, and it will allow us to be more flexible in the shape that we are creating. Remember from before, you can click on those little icons here to switch the sculpt from an object to another, or you can use, as I'm doing right now, the shortcut Alt plus Q on your keyboard, and then the object that will switch to the sculpt mode will be lit with a kind of red color. Okay, so now I'm just keeping on sculpting my head, thinking that the top of the bottom shape will be somewhere below the eye line, okay? So we got the cranium, which is usually looking like a sphere with the sides that are a bit flat, okay? You know that if you touch your temples, you can see, you can feel that they are flat, okay? And then the bottom parts, we don't do only the jaw, we move up to the eye line, just because the movement of your jaw will affect your head as high as that, okay? And then using the same principle, I'm adding another sphere here, and this will be for the nose. This could look like a nose, of course, depending on the style you're going for. I'm gonna do more of a normal approach, okay, not a cartoony and not an approach too stylized for this head at least, okay, and this will be how the nose would look like, okay. You can still adjust the size of a brush depending on the object you're sculpting, But remember that the larger your brush, the better it is, because we only want to work on the general shapes of our head here. We don't want to go into the details yet. This will allow us, again, to be flexible in our approach. So again, another one for the ears. I can start sculpting it, and I don't activate the mirror options because, of course, it's a part on one side of the head, but I'm gonna add to it a mirror modifier with the head being the center of the mirroring so that I can have both my ears on both sides of my head. Okay? And of course, you are not limited to using the sculpt mode. You can still go back to the object mode and modify your object if needed like that. Okay, for like a simple rotation or something. I'm now sculpting my ear. Okay, just as I did for the other part of the head. And now the last element, still using a sphere, would be the neck. Okay, you can feel it with your hand as well. There's a little notch at the back of your head, which is the start of your neck. So model it again or sculpt it again the way you want, depending on the style you're looking for. What I'm doing now is I'm moving all these objects into their own collection, and what I can do next is to duplicate this collection, select all the elements in it, and then move this new head aside. And what I can do now is start sculpting the main shapes to get a different result. I'm gonna go for a more chubby person, okay, with a jaw which is larger, and then, of course, you can imagine everything you want. There is no limit to your creation because all of this is virtual. As long as your computer can handle it, that's why we are starting from a basic sphere, okay? It's accessible to almost all computers. It's not too heavy. And you can see I haven't modified my sphere, but I can still model it and change its shape to whatever I want. Okay? Next step will be to duplicate that even more. Okay? I'm gonna speed up the video from here. And now you can see me sculpting the other heads. I have 4 duplicates, so I will end up with 5 different heads. And of course, as I said earlier, you can imagine that you could do as much as needed depending on the project. So that is my final lineup for my characters, and I think I'm gonna go for the 4th one, okay? If we go back to the character, he don't have that kind of rectangular head, but I like it like that. And then if you look at the body, we've got 3 parts here for the main body parts, okay? And then 3 parts for the hands, and 3 again for the legs. So this is almost what we're gonna use. I'm gonna hide everything, okay? And again, starting with the same principles, I'm just gonna add here 3 spheres, okay? And those are gonna be what I will start with for my body, okay? It is again about knowing anatomy. And you can see me drawing here, it's better to give the body a kind of curve shape, okay? Going forward and then backward again to the hips. So this is what I'm gonna do, okay? And here you got the ribcage, of course, they are like an arch at the front, okay? This is what you can see me doing. And of course, the hips can have this kind of, underwear shape. Like for the head, you can duplicate those 3 elements and do any kind of body shape for any other character. I'm just showing you how easy it is to switch from one to another, okay? So now, let's keep on going. The exception I was talking about is that before you add the arms, you need shoulders. This is important because your arms, technically, they are not connected directly to your ribcage, okay? You've got the collarbones at the front and the scapula at the back. Okay, so now duplicating the shape again, because I've added a mirror modifier to the shoulders, I have the same for the arm here, the upper arm, and I'm just sculpting it. Like for the body, the arms will have some kind of curved shape, just like that. Okay. And again, once my upper arm is sculpted, just gonna modify a bit the shoulders. And of course, what I can do from here is duplicating my upper arm to create the lower arm. They are basically almost the same size, which is great. And I'm gonna also add a sphere for the hand. Okay? You can see from the top, the hands do have kind of rectangular shape with then the fingers. So I'm gonna give it roughly that shape. Remember, this is a blockout. We are focusing on the general shapes and proportions, but not on the details. Okay? So now I'm just adjusting a few things in the arm until it's time to move on to the legs. They are using the same principles. Sphere. Here, you can see that I have a bit of difficulties to sculpt my objects. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's normal. And the way I would fix that was to move to object mode and then go back to sculpt mode, and this will work correctly after that. Okay? So remember this kind of curve shape, okay, for the legs. It's more elegant and our body is really built like that, and it will be easier later on to animate or pose your character to follow this kind of curves motions. Okay, so I'm moving the legs a bit up into the hips. Okay, again, if you look at your own body, you can see that your legs aren't below the hips, but more on the side with the kind of diagonal. And here, I'm just measuring my shape. The upper leg will have roughly the same length than the upper body without the head. Again, I'm copying my upper leg to do the lower legs. Okay, and I'm also adding a sphere to create the foot. I'm gonna sculpt again these parts, respecting the curvature of my body. Okay, and of course finishing up with the foot. And I'm gonna use this tool we've seen last week, the line project tool, to flatten my foot. Okay, which is great like that. Now let's keep on going until I'm satisfied with my shape. Again, with the shape, not with the details. So my character will be soon done. Okay, and after having done all the little small adjustments, here it is. You've got all my heads, my second body type, and my final character as a blockout that I've sculpted. Next time, we're gonna do a remesh on these shapes, and then we're gonna start with the first layer of details, okay, before moving on to maybe a second one, and then the clothing, if we get the time. We'll see what we will do at this stage. Okay, so I hope this was useful. I might release this kind of body, either as a 3D object or maybe just a flat image for you to use as a kind of helper for the proportions. Okay, if you like, I will add a link in the description to it. In the meantime, have fun creating. I hope to see some of your creations soon using that tools. And I'll see you next time. Have a great life. Have a great week. As usual. Take care, everyone. Bye.